Hey y'all! Well, I thought I'd do a follow-up video that is kind of a user guide to reel-to-reel decks for beginners. And just so everyone knows, I'm a beginner. I've been using this thing for about a week, and far from being some sort of an expert, but did a lot of research, did a lot of reading, and kind of want to give you an understanding about what I've learned so far. In my first video, I go over the difference between the 7-inch decks, which this is, and the 10.5-inch decks. So I'm going to be talking more about these 7-inch 4-track decks and focus on that and what I've learned. So, two kinds of reels, plastic, metal. One of the reasons I bought this reel-to-reel player for myself was it just looks so freaking cool. And come on guys, which one looks cooler? A metal reel or a plastic one? Really, that's the only difference. And so, in some ways, these are actually easier to deal with. This one's kind of a pain to thread. You have to kind of find the little thing inside it. This one's got a little slot here in it. They make a whole bunch of different types of metal reels and plastic reels, and you know, I see people playing them with, you know, plastic and a metal on one side, plastic. You know, you can do whatever you want, but again, the aesthetics of it to me was part of the purchase decision and why I picked this one with this aluminum finish, and I like these aluminum reels. So yeah, that's what the reels are all about. And they all use this little 3-slot centerpiece thing here, and it's like a 2-piece little deal that has 3 little tabs sticking on it, and the outer part rotates to the part closest to the machine, so you need to line those up, then slide the reel on. You might have to kind of wiggle a little bit, and then once it goes all the way in, you pull the center out, you turn it until it's like between the 2 slots to hold this firmly against the spindle. So that's how you put the reels on. On the take-up reel, you want to either have the slot here. Some of them have like a little slot here that you would like stick the tape into, and then you hold it and then turn it around and kind of keep doing that with your fingers until it overlaps where the little slot is, and then it holds the tape down in that little slot so it can't slip out. And then you turn it a few turns, you know, whichever way you need to turn it, and that holds the tape onto the take-up reel. And if you're recording, not playing back, but you're recording, I would always go like 15 or 30 seconds into the tape so that you've got plenty of tape on as like a leader. And sometimes people add a piece of colored tape that's like a leader that you can tape to the actual magnetic tape. And that's a way of having a leader that you're touching and not losing any length of the tape. So I've got some leader tape in a little splicing block order, and I'll show you all how to do that in a future video. But so the machine came with this Maxell UD tape, which is old stock, but it's supposed to be some of the better old stock tape. And this had like a worship service, it sounded like, or a sermon recorded on it for some church, I guess. And I just erased the whole tape before I started using it. And you do that by no inputs. You put the tape on, like you have nothing hooked up to the input jack. You put the tape on, you put it on record. Probably wouldn't hurt to turn the levels all the way down just in case. And then just run it through. And then the erase head will erase the tape in this direction. Then you flip the reels and do it in the other direction. That erases the whole tape. That's one way to do it. I think they have a way to kind of mass erase the whole tape. I'll look into that. I haven't researched that, but I know some people, you put a magnet just going like that and it erases the whole tape. But for now, that's what I was doing with the used tape. I did buy some new tape. This was off Amazon, RTM. This is the long play 35 LPR 35. And RTM makes this. This tape sounds really good too. I mean, between the two of them, I think this actually at least as good as this old XL tape, I think. And again, you can buy this new. This says made in France. I guess that's where it is. There's another company, ATR, that's in the north part of North America, or USA, that also is manufacturing tape still. And I've got 2 reels of that coming to also kind of just do a comparison with, and we'll report back on that. But again, don't want to get too deep into that. I'll put the links below about where to buy this tape. There's 2 different types of tape. There's the 1.5 mil thick, they call it master tape, and it's 1,200 feet, and you get 30 minutes a side, like 30 minutes one direction, flip the reels, 30 minutes the other direction. That's on a 4-track machine. There's all these 7-inch decks are 4-track machines, so you get basically an hour total off a 1,200 foot roll, and then they have the 1 mil tape, which is 1,800 feet. That's what I'm using. You get 45 minutes on each side. And so that's your 2 options. I would definitely record the 7.5 IPS. The decks have an option of doing the slower speed, which you get twice the record time on, but you're going to have lower quality. There's no way around it. And you're doing this not, I mean, I guess an example, that church service that was recorded on this tape, they recorded it at the 3 3/4 IPS because they were trying to get as many worship services as they could on the same tape, and the quality wasn't important. But if you're listening to music, you want to be at the 7.5 IPS. So that kind of goes over the tape speeds. Most decks are going to have some sort of EQ for the different speeds, and on this one they've got a little push on, push off button here for 3 3/4 and 7.5. Make sure that it's on the right one. I made that mistake, and yeah, the recording's going to sound weird. Mine turned out like super bright, and I'll go over in a minute how to like test all that while you're recording. So one of the things too that I've learned is there's this whole signal to noise ratio, right? And if you record the tape at a low signal level, you're going to hear more of the background hiss and the noise because you're going to have to amplify what's on the tape or what the tape head picks up more to get the same SPL in the room, right? So the hotter you can record without it distorting or oversaturating the tape, the less hiss and noise you're going to hear. Now, some of these decks have Dolby. I definitely would recommend not buying a Dolby machine. I mean, I know supposedly that there's less noise and stuff. If you record a pretty hot tape, you're not going to hear the noise. And you don't have to deal with the Dolby encoding and making sure that it gets played on a Dolby machine, or that something doesn't happen to the Dolby board in the machine that makes it unrepairable. I would stay away from those machines, is what the research I've done has said, and just record in standard mode. Now, this deck also has a low noise and wide range switch. And I feel like in the low noise range, it's just like a low pass filter that cuts off the upper end where the hiss is, and it just sounds more muted. And that's not why I'm listening to this. And maybe if you're recording, again, a church sermon where you've got, somebody just talking, you put it on low noise, there's nothing up in that range anyway. You're just recording somebody's voice, and so maybe that does make sense. But for music, you definitely, I feel like, should be recording in the high range with no noise filtering. And you're going to want to record it hot. You want the VU meters bouncing pretty far into the red. And, obviously you don't want them just pegged up against the right side of the VU meter or have the last LED lit up. But you want to, have some peaks that peak out the meter. That's not going to be the end of the world, because you want the majority of the recording to be around 0 where it's pretty hot. Now, one of the nice things about recording on one of these multi-head decks, which when you get, I think a lot of the cassette recorders, they used the same head for record and playback, or they had them all in the same head, and so you couldn't do this. When you have like a 2-head, this is actually a 3-head machine. It's got an erase head, which is the one on this side, then it's got a record head, and then it's got a playback head. So it's got this button here that is the source monitor button. And when you're setting the levels up to record, you have it on source. You play the source without the tape running. You monitor the meters. You get it where you think you want it as far as being hot enough. Then you get ready to record. Once you start recording, you can switch back and forth between the source and the tape. And in real time, you can listen to what the tape you just recorded milliseconds before on the other head sounds like. And it should sound identical, or if anything, maybe just a little hotter than the source material. And you can also listen for distortion. These things almost all have a headphone jack in it, so you can really critically listen to both and make sure that you're not getting distortion or it's not doing something weird. And if you hear a big difference, like the EQ sounds hugely different from the source to the tape or that kind of thing, you've got something set wrong. And stop, go back. And again, ideally what we're trying to do is we're trying to capture the source to play it back. And so my use for this machine is taking really high quality vinyl and putting it on tape for 2 reasons. I don't have to keep playing the album, and you don't have to clean it and worrying about all that stuff. You don't have wear and tear on the album, and you're also not wearing out the stylus and just all of that stuff. And the other one is a lot of my really good vinyl is on 45 RPM LPs. And with those, you only get 2, maybe 3 songs per side, and you're constantly having to get up and flip the album over. And while they sound really good, it's kind of a pain and takes away from the meditative listening session kind of therapy, whatever you want to call this thing that we do, having to get up and do that. And by putting it on tape, I can put together something that is 45 minutes of music. Now, another thing is, I don't really like doing this because I feel like when an artist puts together an album, they put the album together in the sequence that they want you to hear it, and it makes sense to them as an artist. But other times I've had like best of an artist, or you've got a compilation of somebody. They've got an Eva Cassidy box set that's really awesome, but this was all put together after she died, so the artist wasn't putting that together. And there's some songs on there that just really aren't my cup of tea. They don't move me. They're not like things that I really love. And there's more than enough on that box set to put together 45 minutes of music, picking and choosing the songs I like. So I can basically put a mixtape together. And the other thing you could do is exactly that. If you wanted to, you were having like a friends over for a party or whatever, or some kind of event, and you just wanted some nice, enjoyable background music, you could put together a mixtape of different artists and stuff and put them all on the same tape, and then you just hit play and go. And for that sort of environment, you might even want to record it on this slower speed so you get 90 minutes on a side without having to do anything. And for background music, you probably wouldn't notice the difference. Plus, this is just a cool conversation piece to have running in your house. So, those are kind of my tips that I've learned so far. And went over in the other video why I picked this machine. I'll do a short version of this that, I like this one because it's all mechanical. It's got glass heads, which is like, instead of being metal, there's like some kind of glass ferrite coating on the heads that make them wear resistant, so you don't have that issue. They're easier to clean, and it's, like I said, it's all mechanical. It's got a couple of belts. It's a 1-speed motor. You change the little capstan roller to change the speeds, so that keeps things simple. I know there's a zillion different machines out there that have different things about them that make it something you might want to buy. So there are some auto reverse machines out there. You can put a little piece of metallic tape on the tape itself, and it's got a little sensor that when it hits that little piece of metal tape, it just automatically reverses and it plays back in the opposite direction. So that's kind of a cool feature. You could end up getting 90 minutes of music without having to touch the deck. But again, that just adds complication and could end up causing repair problems. As far as buying one of these, the 7-inch decks were the consumer 4-track models. They also made 10.5-inch decks, which to me are more prone to issues, and they're a lot more expensive. So if you're just starting out, look for one of these that uses the 7-inch reels. And I'll put a link below to someone that I would trust buying a serviced, ready-to-go deck from. That's where I bought this one from. He's in Woodstock, Georgia. If you live in the area, you can go pick it up from him. And if not, he does shipping, but it's just going to add $100 to $125 to the price. So anyway, there's my beginner's guide to using reel-to-reel. And it's from a beginner. But I feel like I know more now than I did a couple of weeks ago when I first kind of dug into this, and I wanted to share some firsthand kind of experience. And I used to do recording on cassette tape, so I got a good kind of grasp on what you have to do to get a good recording on a tape. And this is no different. And I will say I'm really enjoying listening to this deck. It's got a nice sound to it. It's some ways less fatiguing than these 45 RPM vinyls can be. Sometimes they're a little intense on the top end, especially when you get soprano female vocals. And there's something about this tape saturated sound, kind of mellowness, but still got detailed sound that I really like. In some ways better than the source, which I know sounds crazy, but hey, it's audio, right? So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. I'm probably going to be doing another video in the future going more over like these different tapes and what they sound like, and maybe talking about other decks and formats and where I see the future of this whole reel-to-reel thing going and all that kind of stuff. So we'll do a little more content about it. Plus, in the future, I'm probably going to dive inside the machine, do a recap on the board, look at the transistors, and we'll go all of that more of as a DIY thing, especially for you guys that maybe bought a machine that's got issues and how to repair them. So, yeah, we're going to have some reel-to-reel content. I think this will be fun. So again, if you enjoy this content, please subscribe. And until the next video, have a nice day.